Hello YouTube, this is Said Mirza from willinourreason.com. Today is the December of 10th, 2021, and the topic for today's video is the remembrance of God. Now, we read in many places in the Qur'an that we should be remembering God. It says in the Qur'an that we should be remembering God sitting, standing, or lying down. So basically what it's saying is that we should be remembering God all the time. And I know we are busy with our lives, so most of the time we're busy in the remembrance of other things. For example, in our livelihoods and our children and what's going on in the world as well weighs heavily on our minds. But still, we should be doing our level best to remember God in our free time and try to make more time in reciting the writ of God and establishing the duty. So, in that regard, I wanted to recite to you some of the verses from the Quran that have their subject matter as the remembrance of God, and I will stop off and make some comments as we go forward. Now, this translation is from Brother Gerrans' work, The Quran: A Complete Revelation, which can be downloaded as ever for free from Qur'anite.com, or you can also read it using an online utility called reader.qur'anite.com. I'll put a link in the drop down box below. So let's start. In the name of God, the Almighty and the Merciful. O you who heed warning, wine and games of chance and altars and divining arrows are an abomination of the work of the Satan, so avoid it that you might be successful. The Satan but wishes to cause between you enmity and hatred in wine and the games of chance, and to turn you away from the remembrance of God and from the duty. So will you not desist? That's chapter 5, verses 90 and 91. Now, obviously, we know that games of chance is referring to gambling or any other sort of activity that involves games of chance, that involves you betting on stuff, etc., etc. But we seem to be forgetting that the number one time waster nowadays is not gambling, it is entertainment. Most people are consumed by entertainment, by music, by television, by movies, by social media, and so we should be avoiding this stuff as well, because it diverts us from the remembrance of God. Because this is the takeaway from the verse. Muslims argue about whether wine is forbidden or not, and if games of chance are involved, are we talking about money or no money? But really, the gist of this verse is about these things distracting us from the remembrance of God and causing enmity and hate amongst each other, which is true for social media as well. Okay, continuing on, this is chapter 13, verses 26 to 29. God expands provision for whom he wills, and he straightens. And they exult at the life of this world, but the life of this world compared with the hereafter is only a passing pleasure. And those who ignore warning say, Oh, that a proof were but sent down upon him from his Lord. Say thou, God leads astray whom he wills, and guides to him such as turn back. Those who heed warning, and whose hearts find rest in the remembrance of God. In truth, in the remembrance of God do hearts find rest. Those who heed warning and do righteous deeds, they have blessedness and a good journey's end. Now you're going to see this theme play out in many verses in the Quran, where it talks about God expanding provision and straightening it, because a lot of times men are diverted from the remembrance of God because of money. They're looking to provide for their families, and they're busy in their jobs. So this is one of the things that God is kind of subtly saying, that if you turn yourself to God towards his remembrance and devote yourself to him, then God will expand your provision. And again, the hereafter is permanent. This life is a passing pleasure. And I've tried this myself. If you feel anxiety, if you feel depression, remembrance of God, thinking about him, and the triviality of this life really kind of puts you in the right perspective. Okay, here's another set of verses here, and just sort of a background on these verses. This is the first encounter that Prophet Moses had with God, in which he commanded him to go to Pharaoh. So I think this is a very important passage, because what is right at the beginning, at his first encounter with God, God commands Moses to do a certain thing. So let's start here. And has there come to thee the story of Moses, when he saw a fire, and said to his people, Stay here, I perceive a fire. I might bring you therefrom a firebrand, or find at the fire guidance. And when he came to it, he was called, O Moses, I am thy Lord, so remove thou thy sandals, thou art in the sacred valley of Tuah. And I have chosen thee, so hearken thou to what is revealed. I am God, there is no God save I. So serve thou me, and uphold thou the duty for my remembrance. The hour is coming, I almost conceal it, that every soul might be rewarded for that for which it strives. And let not turn thee away from it him who believes not in it, but follows his vain desires, or thou wilt perish. So this is the first encounter with God, and God commands Moses to establish the duty, that's to establish the salat for God's remembrance. And so you can see the centrality of this activity. And God also commands him to turn away from him who believes not in the hereafter, which is most people nowadays, because they have turned away from God's remembrance, and their affair is of loss. And at the conclusion of this encounter, where Moses and Aaron are both to go to Pharaoh to warn the house of Pharaoh about the coming destruction, God again commands him. This is chapter 20, verse 42. Go thou and thy brother with my proofs, and flag not in my remembrance. Okay, let's look at another one here. This is chapter 24, verses 36 to 39. In houses God has given leave to be raised, and his name to be remembered therein. There give him glory therein in the mornings and the evenings. Men whom neither trade nor commerce divert from the remembrance of God, and upholding the duty, and rendering the purity. They fear a day wherein the hearts and the eyes will turn about, that God might reward them for the rest of what they did, and increase them out of his bounty, and God gives provision to whom he wills without reckoning. And those who ignore warning, their deeds are like a mirage in the desert. The thirsty one thinks it water. When he has come to it, he finds it nothing, but finds God with him, and he pays his account in full, and God is swift in reckoning. So neither trade nor commerce diverts them from the remembrance of God and upholding the duty, and they fear the judgment day, in which they will be paid back for their deeds. And God gives provision to whom he wills without reckoning. Again, see the same theme that God provides. Okay, this is another one, chapter 25, verses 17 and 18. And the day he gathers them and what they serve besides God, and says, Was it you who led astray these my servants, or did they stray from the path? They will say, Glory be to thee, it behooved us not to take besides thee any allies, but thou didst give them and their fathers enjoyment until they forgot the remembrance and became a people ruined. Now, I think this is a very apt state of, it's stating what the reality is, because most of the people who are affluent, who have money, who have the riches, the elites nowadays, they are completely consumed with, running after these material things, and that's all they think about day and night, dream about day and night. And I forgot, but there was a study that was done that basically indexed the level of atheism across the world. And I think the first country that had the highest level of atheists was either Switzerland or Sweden. It was one of the Norwegian countries, because, again, they cited the reason that they were affluent. So it's true that if you encounter hardship and suffer and poverty, then you turn to God and you pray to him, you ask him for his help and repent to him. But if God gives you everything, then you just basically forget the remembrance of God, because you have to remember that wealth is also a big trial. It's a fitna according to Qur'an. Okay, so that's that set of verses. Let's look at a couple more here. This is chapter 29, verse 45. Recite thou what has been revealed to thee of the writ, and uphold thou the duty. The duty forbids sexual immorality and perversity, and the remembrance of God is greater, and God knows what you do. So here, obviously, the duty is to recite what has been revealed of the writ, to read the Qur'an. But it's saying that the remembrance of God is greater than that. So you can see that throughout the Qur'an, there's a lot of emphasis put on the remembrance of God. Okay, here's another set of verses. O you who heed warning, remember God with much remembrance, and give glory to him morning and evening. He it is that performs the duty for you, as do his angels, that he might bring you out of darkness into the light, and he is merciful to the believers. Their greeting the day they meet him will be peace, and he has prepared for them a noble reward. That's chapter 33, verses 41 through 44. Now, here's something interesting. It's saying that remember God with much remembrance and give glory to him. So if you do these things, then God is going to perform his duty, and his angels will perform their duty, bringing us out of darkness into the light. It's a relationship of reciprocity. Okay, here's another one. Chapter 39, verses 21 to 23. Dost thou not see that God sent down from the sky water, and inserted it as springs in the earth? Then he brings forth a crop, differing in its hues. Then it withers, and thou seest it turn to yellow. Then he makes it debris. And that is a reminder for men of understanding. Is then he whose breast God has expanded to submission, so that he follows light from his Lord? Then woe to those whose hearts are hardened against the remembrance of God. Those are in manifest error. God has sent down the best narration, a writ of paired comparison, whereat shiver the skins of those who fear their Lord. Then their skins and their hearts soften to the remembrance of God. That is the guidance of God, wherewith he guides whom he wills, and whom God sends astray, for him there is no guide. So this set of verses is talking about the fragility of life, how God is comparing it to the water that he sends down, and once the water comes down, you see the earth decked out in its finery, and then when the command of God comes, it becomes scattered debris. And this is how life is. So we shouldn't be paying that much stock into this life, but work on doing good deeds for the hereafter. Okay. This is chapter 53, verses 29 to 30. So turn thou away from him who turns away from our remembrance, and desires only the life of this world. That is the attainment of knowledge. Thy Lord, he best knows him who strays from his path, and he best knows him who is guided. Now, in this day and age, obviously, most people are turned away from the remembrance of God because they think that the life of this world is all there is to it, so they want to enjoy as much of this as they can. But the fact of the matter is that there is something after this, which is the hereafter, which is permanent, eternity. And we obviously have been given that knowledge, which God has blessed us with. So we should turn away from them and, devote ourselves completely to God. This is chapter 57, verse 16. Has not the time come for those who heed warning, that their hearts should be humbled to the remembrance of God and what has come down of the truth, and that they be not as those given the writ before? And the span seemed long to them, so their hearts hardened, and many of them are perfidious. And obviously we are all expecting the day of judgment to arrive, but this time frame that we've been given is also a test. So let's keep on remembering God and striving for his grace, and the time will come when the time will come. Okay, here's another one. Chapter 58, verses 14 to 19. Hast thou not considered those who take as allies a people with whom God is wroth? They are neither of you nor of them, and they swear to lies, and they know God has prepared for them a severe punishment. Evil is what they did. They took their oaths as a cover and turned away from the path of God. So for them is a humiliating punishment. Their wealth and their children will avail them nothing against God. Those, they are the companions of the fire. Therein they abide eternally. The day God raises them all together, they will swear to him as they swear to you, and think that they stand upon something. In truth, it is they who are the liars. Thus Satan overcame them and made them forget the remembrance of God. Those are the party of the Satan. In truth, the party of the Satan, they are the losers. So obviously you can see the correlation. This verse is talking about people here in the now who say they believe, but they don't really believe, and they have taken as allies a people with whom God is wroth. Obviously we all know that's talking about the people right now. And because they did that, the Satan overcame them and made them forget the remembrance of God. And they did this because they were looking after the interests of their children and in accumulation of wealth. But these things will not avail them from the fire. Chapter 62, verses 9 to 11. O you who heed warning, when the call is heard for the duty of the day of assembly, then hasten to the remembrance of God and leave commerce. That is better for you, if you but knew. And when the duty is concluded, disperse in the land and seek of the bounty of God, and remember God much that you might be successful. But when they see trade or diversion, they disband towards it and leave thee standing. Say thou, that which is with God is better than diversion or trade, and God is the best of providers. So, again, we are not to let trade or commerce divert us from the remembrance of God. Okay, this is the last set of verses, chapter 63, verses 9 to 11. O you who heed warning, let not your wealth or your children divert you from the remembrance of God. And whoso does that, it is they who are the losers. And spend of what we have provided you before death comes to one among you, and he says, My Lord, hadst thou but delayed me to a near term, that I might give charity and be among the righteous. But God delays no soul when his term comes, and God is aware of what you do. This is a very... this is a set of verses that really shook me because, God does not delay the time when it comes. I mean, you cannot delay, you cannot advance. And it's saying here that we should be spending in the cause of God. And I made a point of this in my last video as well, where I said that it's better that you spend your wealth, in feeding the poor, helping the homeless right now, versus waiting later because of inflation. The price, the purchasing power of the currency is going down. So it's better to spend it now in the cause of God, and also because you never know when God's command will come. So this is one of the delayed regrets of the wrongdoer, that he wished that he had more time to feed the needy. And also that we should not, again, let our wealth and our children divert us from the remembrance of God. Anyway, I hope these verses were of some benefit to you. I will continue to make further videos on this subject, God willing. Until next time, peace and blessings be upon you.